Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. Hope you're having a great day. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that came up as a result of the previous series, and then it is, what does it mean when someone brings out the worst of you versus the best of you? Can you clarify that? I think that's a great T-junction to discuss here because it fits in with a lot of the topics that we discuss here on the Peace and Harmony channel. So thank you so much. So that's what we're going to discuss. But before we get started, I just want to answer a couple of questions. We've had a lot of people who ask questions here on the show, and it's just sort of like I haven't had time to address them. So a lot of the guys might think this is weird, but I've had a lot of viewer questions about the highlighter, or like the highlighter cheek color that I use, and it is called NYX Born to Glow. It's a, I don't know if you can see it here, but it's called Sunbeam, so I put that on. And then also there's this Clinique series that I got from a gift, which has like that, but it also has highlighter. This is Clinique, and it has like a highlighter right here that you can use, which like warms it up. And that is like from Clinique. So, and then someone asked me, yeah, and then so this is the Born to Glow is Sunbeam, and these are, I don't even know, but it might, these were like in a gift kit. There was a third that was included. And then someone asked me about where I get my glasses. These are reading glasses. I use these all the time in 2.0, and I get my glasses basically at TJ Maxx and Marshall's. Once in a while, I will go to a boutique, which has some really cool, stylish glasses, you know, that Oprah wear or stuff like this. And so there are some boutique, but I just really, that is what I use, and it works great for me. So thank you for your viewer questions. And I want to zoom in and focus in, and what does it mean when someone is sort of bringing out the worst of you, particularly someone who is female psychopathic. So one thing important to understand is the foundation of this type of individual. What are you dealing with on the other side of the coin? What is underneath the surface? You know, really, what is a personality? So you might not always think about this in your everyday interaction, particularly if you're falling in love with somebody, you know, or, you know, you're just attracted and allured for some reason, and so you don't question yourself, you don't doubt it. It just might be like a really intense emotion, so you just go with it. And so people usually want to keep that buzz going when they meet this sort of female, and because there's something attractive, different, something that stands out about this person. You know, if you could line up 1,000 people, I mean, you would feel that this person had something unique, and not just, once again, like, oh, that person is a great communicator, or they're knowledgeable. We're talking about something else that gives you maybe a goosebump, a chill, a butterfly in your stomach, and or intrigue, and you know, you find them very attractive in this very sort of unique way that sort of sets them apart from the bunch. So when we talk about really sort of the foundation, realize that a female psychopath does this with intention and calculation. It's not that they're just sort of going about their day naturally, you know, skipping through their tulips or what have you. You know, it's very designed and pre-calculated and premeditated, to the degree that most people do not think about themselves. You know, the way that they look when they do specific things. I mean, drinking a glass of water, eating a potato chip, you know, I mean, just the basic everyday, they reevaluate, and it's done with the object of manipulation, meaning to get people's attention without them recognizing it. In other words, that sort of automatic response, which is that reptilian brain, which is really, we're getting into the subconscious area, the limbic brain, the emotional brain, which a lot of people don't know to have their finger on, you know, the dial, and make sure that you don't go overboard, or even if it's gradually, that it's not bringing out the worst of you or taking your life in another direction, which is unsustainable, based on a falsehood, meaning a psychopathic illusion, because they give the illusion as if. So illusion as if they are your work partner. Illusion as if they are your fiance. Illusion as if they are your BFFFFFFF. You know, whatever. It's the illusion as if. So that's, you know, kind of like a seal that you see with a, you know, a ball on their nose that they're just keeping in the air. Like if you were to go to a, I don't know, not museum of animals, but if you were to go to like a water park or a water show where you have these animals, or at a zoo, that's kind of what they're doing. They're giving you a show. But the problem is it's not just a funny show where we all know it's a show. It's a show that is designed to be like a decoy, like a fly hook that you put in when you're fishing to make and fool the fish, to make, you know, fool the, you know, whatever into the trap, whatever it is that they are hunting. These people are intra-species predator. So you hear about predatory this, you know, predatory lending, or predatory birds like the eagle, the, you know, flesh-eating birds, the, you know, of course, then the king of the jungle, the lion. These are predators, but these are, when we're talking about a psychopath, we're talking about an intra-species predator, which means they're not a lion going after a gazelle, they're not a lion going after a cheetah, they're not a lion going after a jackrabbit, they are a lion going after another lion. After they've mated with them, after they've had their cubs, after they've split them from the group, whatever, you know, do you see, it's a very deliberate and calculated manipulation where people don't realize that they're getting sort of encased or entrapped in their type of communication, which oftentimes undermines your reality, which undermines your I am, which undermines your reputation, which undermines your raw, your authentic self of who you are. Because part of the female psychopath development, or the way that their brain is they have the amygdala, however you want to pronounce it. You know, this is your fight or flight center, and elicits that feeling of panic or fear. So they, you know, they would cause you to go, whoa, I'm not going to do that. That's dangerous. Okay, we're talking about that mechanism. I mean, do you know what I'm talking about? When you are able to put your foot, you know, your foot on the brakes. Nope, you know, you just know better. You've had experience. You know, you're saving, this is an automatic process that you don't have to intervene in. This is where the limbic brain is. This is an automatic process, just like breathing. I mean, it's wired in you. You don't have to think about it or judge it. Now, when you're in a relationship with a female psychopath, these individuals do not have empathy. They have manufactured empathy. They have mimic empathy, which means they observe other people and what their face looks like when they hear some sad news, what the body changes, what the nonverbal body changes go through when they hear some bad news, or, you know, when they find out something wonderful that is related to a relationship that really a psychopath couldn't care less about, because they're in it to win it. They're in it for a specific take and not a give. In other words, you don't really know what you're playing with or what you're dealing with because of their degree of deception and concealment. And so without that empathy, and they also are very fearless, they're reckless. And so when you're around these people, you will naturally become a little bit more attuned and like them. This is just how groups and social dynamics work. You pick up on each other's feelings, each other's heartbeat, breathing, all this sort of, you would call it entrainment, where things just sort of get in sync. This is just, of course, a natural situation that comes with a relationship. That's a bond. You have a connection. This is nothing to analyze. But when we're talking about having this sort of situation with a female psychopath, you're having this bond with something that does not have empathy or does not have a heart. So it's kind of like an emotional boomerang that then comes back and creates a lack of empathy for self. It's sort of it creates a new feedback mechanism, almost like a biofeedback machine, if you will, that you then dissociate or unplug or disconnect from your own authenticity, your own values, your own best judgment, your own best, wait a minute, something is not right here. I'm not being represented in this relationship. They are gone for these periods of time. I have not met their work. I have not met their kids, or there's something that you feel is a little off. And it seems like the limitations are there in the name of good. In other words, it's to protect the kids, that you don't meet my kids yet. It's for my own promotion, that you don't come to the work functions yet. So there's all these sort of it seems to be these feel-good stories that are on the foundation oftentimes of the relationship, but so you end up making amends, sacrifices, excuses. This is just in order to sacrifice the short term for a long-term gain. In other words, you're willing to take a couple hits in the short term to have long-term benefits with this person, almost like an investment. So the problem, and then so if you stay in a relationship with a psychopath for long enough, you're not getting an accurate reflection of yourself. The empathy mirror neurons are not being activated in this person. They're just not existent. And so I really feel, and then so what you're witnessing then is a sham, meaning it is what they are putting on for you just to get as an expected outcome. So it lacks a sort of sincerity, purity, genuineness, based in truth, based in open, honest communication. This is what we're talking about. And so when you're around someone who is in this sort of deception and does not have empathy, and it really isn't supportive of your authentic self, who you are with all your dreams, desires, fears, etc., they're sort of rejecting you. But yet then people stay in a relationship where they feel rejected. And then they kind of feel that, well, this is a sacrifice because this person is so much better than me. They're smarter, faster, whatever. So people then default their I am to this individual. And they really have a very uncomfortable and bloated ego, which is very uncomfortable for them. Meaning they're out of tune. They're out of sync. They aren't having the accurate reflected to them of who they really are. In fact, oftentimes they will reflect back or project a falsehood, one of their own insecurities, or they will project another weakness onto you and make it sort of funny, etc. But they are using this as a way to break you down, and it continues to build up and build up. So then you might, it gets to a point, I would say, of toxicity, meaning it gets to a point of discomfort. The hurt is great enough. We got to do something about this. We're going to go over and drive and take care of this right now. We're going to have an all-out blowout. We're going to get it all out on the table. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, a piece of my heart. They need to know that you can't fool you can't fool the master, or you can't fool me, or you want to have that confrontation. This becomes very important sometimes to unbottle or to discuss or let out. And vent. And oftentimes it might, need to feel that you need to confront this individual. And so you do need to be able to address it with them. But if they are living the lie, you'll feel that they just don't really get, they don't feel where you're coming from. It's as if they don't listen. It's as if they're not getting you. But then they will, if they really get frustrated, then you'll see the rage blow up, where they act very silly, out of character, either very angry or what feels to be a show, and then sort of shut down. So you'll see the emotion, and then 20 minutes later, they don't even remember the fight. They're just acting as if everything is normal. This was very uncomfortable. So this really brings out the worst of people. It brings them on the brink of not having empathy for self or compassion for self because of a loss of perspective. A loss of perspective really is part of the problem. You become too enmeshed and too fused with the relationship rather than your identity, your self-connection, your I am. So that independence ends up sort of being lost. It ends up being lost, though, in the name of love, or what you feel is in the best interest of the relationships. So what's, I think, very difficult for people who have been victimized and targeted is to reconcile that within themselves and to say, well, I had good intentions here, but this fear caused me, you know, these situations to fall on deaf ears. I didn't want to listen to the truth then. I didn't want to see it. It was, you know, a fleeting moment. I wanted the opposite to be true. You know, loss of perspective is really when, if you're around this individual, they will groom those people to be addicted to them or to feed off of this, what might feel like an attraction, a relationship, a connection, but it's usually meant to alter and change your behavior, which keeps you inextricably connected with them as if they are your measuring stick. So your internal sense of compass of direction and what you feel is right or wrong for you becomes sort of ripped out and then replaced with their moral compass, which is an immoral compass. So, you know, then anything goes. People then start to feel that, you know, I don't like what this relationship is doing to me. I don't like where my life is going. I don't like the bad habits, or I'm having a lot of sadness and depression and melancholy because they're not connecting with me on the way that I always thought it would be, you know, in that long range perspective. So this will bring out the worst, meaning it's in your self-preservation, but it's gotten you to the point where they want you, because if you can be, you know, upset off the hinges, then whoever's making you upset has control. Whoever is making you envious has control. And really, you aren't envious, you aren't jealous, you're just looking for some open and honest communication to have it, you know, an understanding. But you will then develop, I would say, a similar rash judgment or lack of moral judgment sort of while you're in relationship or in cahoots, because it becomes the thing to do. You've got the groupthink mentality. You know, everyone else might be thinking this, so you must also. You lose your ability to be an independent thinker. Or maybe you weren't enough of an independent thinker before, so this became another symptom of a relationship that mimics one that you had in the past that might have been based on violation or abuse. So this is how it becomes manifest or plays out. Oftentimes this is going in the wrong direction. I call this negative orderly direction, thinking, feeling, behaving, and becoming. And it's meaning that you have to be able to be at that T-junction and go, whoa, you know, that's not me. That is acting out of fear. That's acting out of manipulation. That's acting out of an illusion. And to say, I don't want to partake in that. I literally don't want to digest. No, thank you. You know, pass the platter onward. You do not have to be controlled by the fear that they are extolling or exuding. You don't have to fall prey to the confusion that they want to keep you in. You don't have to stay in the gaslighted, disowned state. You don't have to stay in that vibe. It is okay to let go of that relationship and to feel safe. Oftentimes people feel there's so many things unresolved that it's not okay to say it's over or to put it to bed, or it's not okay to have closure. There's a misunderstanding that will just continue to brew. It'll continue to gather steam and build up momentum until it blows the lid off of people. So you want to be able to have a valve check where you can blow off some steam little by little so you can see things clearly rather than the Vaseline through the glasses. But oftentimes it's very difficult to control, because I would say it feels then like a compulsion or a real drive to do something. Once again, people will do things that are out of character, eating food that they never eat, saying things that they usually don't say, becoming very unprofessional when they are a professional, beginning to smoke or gamble when they've never smoked or gambled. They just feel this need to do something, and they aren't able to question it and look at it and get it down into perspective, into, you know, a stamp size versus a big, you know, the little stamp on the envelope is now like stretched out to be like as big as a billboard. People lose perspective. They can't see behind the blinders that the relationship has created, because either you're trying to figure something else about them. They have an enigma, which means like a puzzle that you can't quite solve. Very sort of enigmatic communication, very puzzling, oftentimes very unique to this person, which is designed and usually hyper arouses people. So that becomes desirable and then not desirable, but people don't know how to keep it in check. So you can understand that the cause that would create this effect, if you're around people who don't want your success, who are trying to calculate a reason and take something from you without you looking like underneath your nose, they're just going to pull this out. They then have the control of where you're looking, how you're feeling, what your emotions are, whether your thoughts are productive or not, whether you're making good decisions or not. You become just sort of what people might call like an out-of-body experience, or they're just very stressed out, hyper anxious. You know, the engine is going too fast for park. It's just not comfortable. So you have to be willing to realize that this is part of their manipulation, is to get that super sleuth, or that feeling of, I have to pursue this, I have to get to the bottom of this, I have to bring this to the attention of authorities, you know, to settle the score. So it can really bring out the worst in a lot of people, and they will ride this wave, if you will, for a long period of time until they realize that it just is going to burn them out, you know, exhaust them to be on that hyper aroused state. So then it's kind of like you need to circle back and recover and build up the comfort zone within. You have to build up the safety within. You have to unplug and detach from all that hyper arousal and that whole lifestyle and go no contact. Just clear it out of your system. Allow yourself to just come back to square one. There is a square one. You just have to decompress, de-stress, and realize that what is wholesome for you is going to be where the fun is at, not, you know, the too much of the dark side that maybe you were getting involved in or tampering with, where you were overextending yourself. I mean, for these people, you know what you're talking about. People who have unhealthy sleep habits, unhealthy eating habits, gambling, addictions, drinking and drug dependency. A lot of these will be in the on the uptick to keep this fantasy in place. So realize and be willing to be rigorously honest with yourself, brutally honest, that this is where I'm at. Because if you lie to yourself, then you're lying to yourself and you're not giving yourself the full story and full empowerment. To be fully empowered and in your strength and, you know, driven in life, you have to be in the I am and in the positive, based on a sense of positive judgment, you know, and trust of self. So not having a highly degraded sense of self, which is really the bottom of the shame, where you have been then, especially if you expose this person, you might feel that you're sort of guilty by association, or that this makes you now a bad person, or you're feeling way off track because you've been associated with this person for too long and you don't want to be in that sphere of influence. No, thank you very much. This isn't bringing out the best for me. It's very difficult to say that into words, especially if you have a lot of difficulty hashing out things from the past. So you have to be willing to set the score within yourself and say, amen, I'm chalking this one up to a loss. I'm letting this go. This is the right decision. And I am safe making this decision. You have to be able to come back to a calm, centered state and decompress and not get allured back into those same habits, the same emotional habits where you were triggered, you were on the reactive rather than the responsive. You know, you lost the grip on the steering wheel, so to speak. So yes, and then pulling out the best of you, which means you're operating from a sense of strength, a sense of non-resistance. You're in a flow state. You're in an allow state. just because this and this happened, it's not going to ruin this day. You're not controlled by other people's evaluation of you. This does not even become an element of your mind. You are not worried or concerned or threatened. It is what it is. What people think about you is none of your business, is basically how you end up, changing into that healed space, because people who have been wrongly and falsely accused of things, targeted, they might become then very harsh on themselves. And this becomes a very then repetitive cycle, because it becomes very rehearsed, rememorized, and prodded in. You kick it into place with, then you might even be able to have some very, you start to have some very negative self-talk. Yeah, you dummy. Yeah, you stupid. Yeah, you dodo, or whatever it is. And you end up becoming very self-critical. You're sort of what I call carrying the baton. They're handing over that dark light, and then you're then holding the dark light and then wondering why it's so dark. I mean, it's because you grabbed onto it and you're keeping it in place. You're holding on, So be willing to let go of that and allow it to fly off back to its source. You don't want to have that dance anymore. It's okay to say, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, got the tattoo, got the scar, whatever it is, I got whatever I needed from that. And oftentimes to get to the other side, it's because you needed to learn something about self-protection, self-preservation, and appreciation of yourself, because you become depreciated by this other individual. This is what they do. Even though you've given them a time and experience of value, they will not reflect that back to you. There's always a hollow, there's a disconnect. So people then feel that they have not, they haven't met the full cycle with this individual, so they don't know how to bring it full circle and back home. Well, you have to bring it back home within. You have to do some studying. You have to maybe read some, do some podcasts, some vlogs, some comments, look at other people's stories, and begin to calm down. Begin to, relax. But these are states that are oftentimes not encouraged or experienced while you're in the relationship. So you have to be able to expand your repertoire, extend your emotional repertoire to include one of peace and serenity, to become heart-centered, to become intuition-centered, to become, more guided and less analytical in going into what is in your best interest, especially if this means taking care of yourself and not pleasing others. So you have to look at all of these various wires that went into keeping this negative relationship in place. You might have to detach them or pull them off one by one. You might have 20 wires, connected here. You might have a big fat cable. You might have some other ones, but you have to be willing to trim it down and say, okay, I got this. I'm okay with detaching here. I'm okay not needing this. And I am. And you have to have that conversation so it becomes like a preventative, and you create sort of an emotional seal around you that becomes inoculated from this sort of the recurring thoughts. In other words, you put it to bed. You put it behind you. And then you're able then to work and live from your strengths and what is in your best interest without devaluing them. You begin to then live in the neutral, the indifferent, and then the non-judgment, and then into your strength. This is empowerment. You will feel much better. You'll have better relationships. Things will begin to become clearer. You'll be living the dream, dreaming to live. You'll be falling in love with your future rather than, having remorse and regret and just trying to rehash the past. This is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. You have a beautiful day, and it's a great day to be strong, be serene, be safe, live your truth, embark on a new adventure, and get juiced up for your future. What would you, if you didn't have to feel all this fear and panic, what would you be feeling? If you didn't have to feel all this fear and panic and anxiety, what would you be feeling? Ask yourself these questions so you can open up your internal repertoire, so you can see what you really desire. we'll go back to these sort of questions. They are excellent to help you sort of get through to the other side of that negative or very stressed out emotion that causes thoughts to be frazzled, all that, your body to be frazzled, engaging in behaviors that don't serve you. You can see there is really a connection, and we want to help unpack that for you all. Have a beautiful day. You got this. Be strong.